Welcome to Virtual Roots Weekend 2021, Southern Soil Collective Learning in Harmony with the Land. Thank you for joining us. And before we get started, let's have our language justice partners, Bancha Lenguas, walk us through our language access.
Greetings. For this year's Roots Weekend, Alternate Roots has teamed up with Bancha Lenguas Language Justice Collective to interpret from Spanish to English and English to Spanish. We are a collective of language justice workers based in Bulbancha, the Choctaw word for the occupied land of New Orleans. Bulbancha means the place where many languages are spoken. Saludos! Para este fin de semana de Roots, Alternate Roots formó un equipo con el colectivo de justicia del lenguaje Bancha Lenguas para interpretar del español al inglés y del inglés al español. Somos una colectiva de trabajadores de justicia del lenguaje, basadas en Bulbancha, la palabra chocta para el territorio ocupado de Nueva Orleans. Bulbancha significa el lugar donde se hablan muchos idiomas. Como trabajadores de justicia del lenguaje, nos esforzamos a crear un espacio para que todos aquí presentes puedan entender y ser entendidas en el idioma en que nos sentimos más poderosos. As language justice workers, we strive to create space for everyone here to understand and be understood in the language in which we feel most powerful. En Bancha Lenguas, trabajamos hacia la inclusividad de género en nuestro trabajo por la justicia del lenguaje. At Bancha Lenguas, we work towards gender inclusivity in our language justice work. Notará que estamos usando la letra E al final de las palabras binarias. Esto no es un error. Es nuestro intento de crear lenguaje más inclusivo e incluir personas de todos los géneros. You will notice us using the letter E at the end of gendered words. It's not an error. It's us attempting to create more inclusive language and include people of all genders. For our viewers watching the live stream, please know that we are providing interpretation from Spanish to English and English to Spanish using a conference call line. So if you need Spanish interpretation, call 559-671-2925 and you'll automatically be able to join the conference call line. You will see the number pop up in the screen and in the chat. Para quienes nos acompañan hoy, por favor sepan que estamos proveyendo interpretación del español al inglés y del inglés al español, usando una línea de conferencia. O sea que, si usted necesita interpretación al español, llame a 559-671-2925 y automáticamente podrá unirse a la línea de conferencia. Usted verá el número en la pantalla y en el chat. To create this space together, a few things. Please speak at a slow and steady pace. Please speak loudly and clearly. Please try to say the full name of organizations or other acronyms. Keep an eye on the chat in case we send a message to slow down or to speak up. Keep your mic on mute when you're not speaking, and if you have headphones, please use them. One speaker at a time. Interpreters can only interpret one voice at a time. We don't want to be in the position of having to decide which voice to privilege over the other. Para crear un espacio juntos, algunas cositas. Por favor, hable a un paso lento y constante. Hable en voz alta y clara. Intente decir el nombre completo de los acrónimos, por ejemplo, de diferentes organizaciones. Échele un ojo al chat por si enviamos un mensaje para que hable más lentamente o en voz más alta. Mantenga su micrófono en silencio si no lo está usando y si tienes audífonos con micrófono, por favor úsalos. Una persona a la vez. Los intérpretes solamente pueden interpretar una voz a la vez. No queremos estar en la posición de tener que decidir cuál voz privilegiar sobre la otra. And lastly, don't suffer in silence. If you have any problems hearing us or the speakers, please send a message in the chat. Y por último, no sufra en silencio. Si tiene cualquier problema escuchándonos a nosotros o a los presentadores, por favor envíe un mensaje al chat. Thank you for your commitment to creating a multilingual space. Gracias por su compromiso en crear un espacio multilingüe.
Thank you, Bancha. Muchísimas gracias, Bancha. We appreciate you growing with us. Somos muy agradecidos que están creciendo con nosotros. Yo soy Leticia. I am Leticia. I use she, her they, them pronouns interchangeably. I am on the Roots staff recently. So grateful for that, to be a part of the comms team. And I am a non-binary femme. I have curly purple hair. I have a yellow top and a colorful necklace. I have white eyeliner and a painting of poppies, red poppies behind me. Alternate Roots is supported by the generous donations from our members, individual donors, and funders. You can find more information on our website. Our Alternate Roots mission is to support artists in the Southern US who are working to eliminate all forms of oppression. We invite you to be active in the chat stream. I see y'all, I've seen y'all all weekend long. And if you have any other tech issues, please reach out in the chat and we'll have someone there to assist you. Check out our Roots Weekend website. Amazing programmers and a lot of love, acts of love have gone into creating this interactive website, rootsweekend.org. Join us on Slack, or feel free to comment on our live blog on the Roots Weekend website. Our gender equity work group reminds us to change all of our profiles on our chat names to include our pronouns. Reminder that it is all of our work to create a space that is safer for our trans, non-binary, intersex, gender non-conforming, and two-spirit comrades. Gender ambassadors will be present throughout the weekend and throughout the rest of the session to support us in this. And they will be designated by 2 asterisks by their names. As you're adding your pronouns to your profile, drop in the chat where you're zooming in from. If you know the names of the Indigenous people who are stewards of the land you are currently occupying, drop that into the chat too. If not, we will invite you to learn more about land acknowledgement. One website that is not perfect but is helpful is native-land.ca. A quick reminder that no matter how Roots convenes, whether it's in a physical space or a virtual space, we do so under the guides of our community agreements. And we'll drop the link into the chat for your reference. And our wellness team reminds us to take care of ourselves while we are in this virtual space. I know I brought my strawberries. I have my agua, yes. So you grab something to drink, grab the snacks, take all the breaks that you need. Now that ends all of our announcements, and let's get this session started. Give big thanks to Rooter and member Sonia Ocio, who will start us off with a grounding video of song and words and story.
Hello everyone. My name is Sonia, and I just want to introduce you today a chant. And I want to invite you to just imagine that the sound, your own sound, is the best medicine that you can receive. That will put every part of your body, your mind, and your spirit in tune. And you can close your eyes. You can do anything you want right now. Just imagine that your own sound is coming through your feet. Yes. And it's absorbing all the richness, all the power of Mother Earth, Pachamama. So traveling through your legs, to your tummy, to your parts first, then your tummy, your heart, your throat, your eyes, your arms, everywhere, and going through your head to reach the sky. Yes, you can make any sound that comes, and I can sing something else. So we are making like a duo or a choir, but everybody's listening to their own voice. Okay, let's do it. You can get crazy and loud too. Hey, 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 my, hey, 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 my, hey, can you feel it? How it starts vibrating more when you are conscious of what you are doing, just thinking that is medicine. Hey, 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 Maya, 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 now sing inside, very loud inside. Only you can hear yourself. Only the universe can hear yourself. And let's do it again with our own voice. Loud. Hey, my, hey, go as low as you can. And now go as high as you can. Now hum. Hey, 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 hey. Take a big breath in and hold it. Let it go. Let's do it 3 times. And we start whatever we're going to do after this. And the last, breathe in and breathe out. Let's do it with a sound. That breathe out. So I wish you a very good day, a lot of learning, a lot of sharing, and I'm very happy to be able to share with you this way.
Wow, y'all. That was so beautiful. I have to give thanks again to Sonia Osio for sharing this gift of song that we can make in our own bodies and reminding us that this energy is infinite. Visualizing that connection that we are all having right now. Let's just take one more breath together. And make an audible sigh out. Thank you so much. And I think now we are ready for our closing conversation. This session will flow into a fire ceremony presented by the Gender Equity Creation Team, and we'll weave our weekend learnings together in proper roots fashion with a community song led by rooter, researcher, and interdisciplinary artist Ron Reagan. Mapping our communities on our terms will feature visual art presentations by artists Shauna M. Griffin, Ashley Minner, and we'll lead with a conversation led by scholar, cultural organizer, Roots member, and my hermano, Joe T. They'll be discussing the ways Black and Indigenous communities have historically and continue to shift in response to gentrification and other harmful policies adopted by city officials. So get your snacks, get your agua, Tlaxlo, Clamatli, gratitude, thank you, and I'll catch y'all at the end.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here. My name is Joe Talbert Jr., he, him, his pronouns, and I have the distinct pleasure of being in conversation with Ashley Minner and Shana M. Griffin. So I just would like to begin by reading their bios. Ashley Minner is a community-based visual artist from Baltimore, Maryland, and an enrolled member of the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina. She received her MFA in Community Arts from Maryland Institute College of Art and her PhD in American Studies from the University of Maryland, College Park. Oh, hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here. My name is Joe Talbert Jr., he, him, his pronouns, and I have the distinct pleasure of being in conversation with Ashley Minner and Shana M. Griffin. So I just would like to begin by reading their bios. Ashley Minner is a community-based visual artist from Baltimore, Maryland, and an enrolled member of the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina. She received her MFA in Community Arts from Maryland Institute College of Art and her PhD in American Studies from the University of Maryland, College Park. In her artwork and in her life's work, Ashley is most inspired by the beauty of everyday people. She currently works as a professor of the practice and folklorist in the Department of American Studies at UMBC, where she also directs the minor in public humanities. This fall, she will begin work as a curator at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. Shana M. Griffin is a feminist activist, researcher, applied sociologist, artist, geographer, and abolitionist. Her practice is interdisciplinary and undisciplinary, centering historic inquiry rooted in Black feminist thought, organizing tradition, and spatial imaginaries. Her work exists across the fields of sociology, geography, land use planning, and socially engaged art, and within movements challenging urban displacement, carcerality, reproductive control, climate change, and gender-based violence. She is the founder of Punctuate, creator of Displaced, and co-founder of JPNSI. Shana is a 2021 Creative Capital Awardee and a Junebug Productions 2020-2021 John O'Neill Cultural Arts Fellow. Shana holds a Master of Arts in Sociology. And so we're gonna get started today by having both artists present their work to you all. And then we are gonna engage in a little conversation. after that. And so we are going to begin by an artist talk by Ashley Minner. So welcome, Ashley Minner.
Thank you for that intro, Joe T. I so appreciate you. And it's my profound honor to be in conversation with yourself and with Shayna. Could I have permission to share? Thank you. So I'm going to show y'all a lot of images, being a visual artist. And I was asked to give sort of an introduction to my practice broadly, so I'll do a little bit of that, and then I want to talk to you specifically about this project, revisiting the reservation, the Lumbee Indian community of East Baltimore. So before I begin, let me say that I'm coming to you today from Baltimore, Maryland, which is the ancestral homeland of the Piscataway people and the Susquehannock people, and many more groups of indigenous folks have been through this territory. If you go to this website, nativeland.ca, it's a good first stop to learn more about whose land you're occupying. If you are on the continental United States or in the Americas at all, you're on native land. And to show that the occupation happened through a historically specific process, I like to show this image of the treaty whereby the colony of Maryland got the land that would become Baltimore from the Susquehannock people in 1652. So this is in the Maryland State Archives right now. I am a popular educator. That means not that everybody likes me best, but that I work with all kinds of people, right? So when I first came to Roots, I was mostly working with young people. And this is a picture of our classroom at the Baltimore American Indian Center some years ago. And I was running an after-school art program with American Indian youth in the city at that time. I've also spent a great deal of time doing projects with my elders, like the one I'm working on now. The first was a series of oral histories with Lumbee elders in Baltimore that became artist books, like this one about my Uncle John, which half of the book was a transcription of a story the elder told, and the other half was photos from that elder's life with my captions. Because most of the elders I had interviewed told me stories about the work that brought them to Baltimore from North Carolina, the Baltimore Museum of Industry became interested in this project and hosted a show whereby the elders were able to visit the museum, see their lives on display, and get all dressed up and be so proud, and also speak for themselves. So here's Uncle John giving the invocation for the event, and then a panel of elders saying how they felt about their own experiences. And it was at this point that I realized I wanted to do work like this for the rest of my life. And then, of course, I've had the opportunity to travel. Here I am presenting at Azul some years ago on this work and sharing with our greater community. Later, I did a project on our unique gospel singing traditions with many of the same elders at our church. And then the work for which I'm most well known is a series of portraits called The Exquisite Lumbee. And I did this with people from my own generation, all Baltimore Lumbee folks, to remind us that we're beautiful and strong and important, and that we are part of a legacy that's so much bigger than ourselves, and that we deserve nice things, that in many ways we're like superheroes. And again, the best part of doing this project was seeing how proud everybody was of their selves being reflected in a way that that honored them, that they had a hand in producing that reflection. And they all got dressed up and came out to the original gallery opening as well. Everybody wanted a picture with their portrait. And then this work has since been shown around the country and has returned to our tribal college in North Carolina on permanent display. Sometimes people take pictures with the portraits and send them to me. And larger versions are also on display at other places like the Center for the Study of the American South at UNC Chapel Hill, and on and on. So when we do land acknowledgements, a lot of times people take this to mean that Indigenous folks don't move around, and that's not the case. Let me tell you more about our people. Obviously, we're not Indigenous to Maryland. It's kind of in the name, the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. We are the descendants of ancestors who come from this wide swath of territory that stretches from what is now known as the James River in Virginia to what is known as the Great Petey River in South Carolina. And prior to the establishment of the United States, fleeing colonial warfare, disease, and enslavement, our ancestors coalesced in a place that is known as Robeson County, North Carolina. You can see here, it's the southernmost part of the state, kind of in the middle. 95 runs right through it. And this is what it looks like there. We take our name from the Lumbee River, which winds its way through our tribal territory. You can see it's kind of murky and dark and swampy. It's also known as Drowning Creek. And what doesn't look like the river and the swamp looks a lot like this. This is a picture of a tobacco field that I snapped some years ago, and not so much has changed from then to when my mom was a child. Growing up there, here's a picture of her and her brothers and my grandmom when they were a sharecropping family. And so in this time, Lumbee families, many of them lost ownership of their homeland through the Southern agricultural system, and they found themselves tenant farming or sharecropping on their tribal homeland, which is a really hard way to survive. And also this part of the South was part of the Greater South, so it was Jim Crow era. And in this part of the world, there were actually three separations by race. There were three separate school systems: Black, White, Indian, three sections in the movie theater. Imagine trying to separate three sections of a bus. It gets a little ridiculous, but that's what life was then. And just to make my mom happy and to prove to y'all that this isn't like poverty porn, they had clothes. They had clothes. Look at them. Here they are, all dressed up. But they were poor. They didn't have a lot of money. And there were all these kind of factors making life difficult. So lore holds that Lumbee veterans coming back from World War II passed through major cities like Baltimore here and Philadelphia and Detroit, and figured out it was way easier to make a living working in factories than it was farming somebody else's tobacco. But you can also see Baltimore looks a lot different than the river and the field, right? And also nobody was expecting American Indians in Baltimore, especially not some that don't look like what they see in the movies in Hollywood, which we generally do not. So that was true in my family's case. This is a picture of my grandfather when he was in World War II. And he ended up moving to Baltimore, straight to a part of Baltimore County called Dundalk, which is where I was born and raised and still lived. But we know that it wasn't just World War II veterans who came here. We actually have a member of our family who was an 1893 graduate of Baltimore University Schools of Medicine, or today known as Johns Hopkins University. This is my grandfather's great uncle who, or uncle rather, who ended up being the first Lumbee physician. He left North Carolina and came north looking for a place where he could get training where people wouldn't suspect that he was American Indian, and then he went back home. So he kind of paved the way, and that's how our community in Baltimore was established. Relatives sent for their relatives, and from the 1950s through the 1960s, anywhere from 2,000 to 7,000 Lumbees occupied a small area of East Baltimore City. And you can see our folks started to have access to nicer things. Here are some ladies in the 1940s and their hair is all done. There's cars in the background. The technology was a big shock. You know, even just the city lights is one of the main things that our elders remember about their first reactions to Baltimore, because many of their houses weren't even wired at home during this time. So when it got dark, everybody just went to bed. So this is the general area where folks settled. My grandfather's father actually was living in Baltimore when he died in 1948, right here where the arrow's pointing. And the greater shaded area outlines what came to be known as our reservation, affectionately. And the first thing Lumbee people did when they got to Baltimore as an organized effort was establish a church. In my whole lifetime, that church was here at 211 South Broadway, but you have to remember, I've only been alive since 1983. From the church grew the Indian Center right up the street. And this is where I spent a lot of time growing up and working with those young kids and other people. And in our lifetime, collectively, everyone you see in this picture, we always knew the church, the Indian Center, the daycare that used to be across the street on Lombard. And then we knew stories of places that no longer exist, like the Volcano Bar at the corner of Ann and Fairmont, which was a crazy place. And they said every Friday night it would erupt. But when you go to that corner, there's no bar there and you can't even tell where one would have been. So a lot of what I did with the young people I worked with is walk around the neighborhood and kind of remind us that we have every right to be there. In my mom's day, intermarriage was not really popular. If you wanted to marry someone who was not Lumbee or have a relationship or kids with someone who was not Lumbee, you basically had to move away. Well, when Lumbee people moved 400 miles north to Baltimore, they had kids with everybody. So these most recent generations, they are truly multiracial and multi-ethnic. And the United States usually has a problem with what are racially ambiguous people like me. They just can't figure out what you are. And they ask silly questions like, what are you? So we did a lot of walking around and reminding ourselves that we have history here. We belong here as much as anyone does. And in that process, we realized that we're always walking in the footsteps of those who came before us. So you can see we're standing here just about where the ladies were in the 1940s. So I started to give a little walking tour, and it was a short one, of our neighborhood. You know, the church, the Indian Center, the daycare, and that was it. And one day, one of my elders was along with me, and she is a daughter of a founder of the Indian Center and a really active member of the church. And because she was there and she has a longer memory than me, I, of course, said it makes sense for her to lead this tour. Well, she got so excited that we started in front of the church that she spent like half an hour in front of the church, and I started to worry we weren't going to make it to our next two stops. I mean, she was singing. She was inviting people to services. People in the street were walking over until finally I was like, hey, Sister Linda, can we go? Because we're not going to make the rest of the stops. And she said, okay, you're right. We got 10 feet away and she stopped us in front of El Salvador restaurant and said, wait, don't you want to tell folks about the store? And I was like, what store? All I see is the restaurant. This is where I'm trying to come back and eat lunch. And she's like, no, there was an Indian store here. And I had to think, you know, there was an Indian store here, but of course I wouldn't have remembered it because it was gone before I was born, which caused me to think further that with anywhere from 2,000 to 7,000 Indians in this little neighborhood, of course there would have been more than the church, the Indian Center, and the daycare that I grew up with. What happened to the rest of our places? So to answer that question, I convened more of my elders, and I had found this 1969 map called the Lumbee Community in Baltimore. And I was like really excited because it has more sites on here than I knew for my lifetime. And I was like, look, y'all, I found the reservation. Look, I found your community. You can also see some racial and ethnic vernacular of the time on here and a big swath of the neighborhood that's labeled Urban Renewal Area Vacant, which is a clue. And I was like, look, I found your community. And they were like, no, this is all wrong. And I was like, well, could you mark it up and fix it? Could you correct it? And they were like, no, it's so wrong. In fact, we're just going to turn it over and make our own maps. And that's what they did. In conversation with one another, they were remembering alley to alley, store to store, street to street, what used to be in the community when they were young. And this is an example of one of the maps they made that day. And you can just see the difference in information. There's so much more here. But also, if you consider that each one of these squares represents a city block, it's hard to understand where the stuff would have been. So I was like, y'all, I can't understand where the stuff would have been. And they said, well, what you should have done is you should have printed out a big street map and we could have marked it up together. And here's my Aunt Jeanette pointing to where she used to live on Baltimore Street when she first came to the city. But I still wasn't getting it. I was like, I've been in this neighborhood quite a bit since I was born, and I still don't understand where this stuff is supposed to be. And I'm not going to get it until we go down there together and you point physically to what I'm supposed to be seeing. And they were like, okay. So here's Sister Linda showing me places where Indian people have literally inscribed themselves into the landscape in Baltimore. This is a brick down on Broadway Pier in honor of two founders of the American Indian Center. But then here's Aunt Jeanette pointing to the middle of a park where she told me to pull over. And she said, this is where I used to live when I first came to Baltimore. And I was like, Aunt Jeanette, you lived in the park? And she said, no, this used to all be apartment houses. And then I realized, here's an aerial shot of the reservation, that every place that Lumbee owned or occupied basically is now so transformed it's unrecognizable, and a lot of the places are now green spaces. So the park you see in this picture is the 1700 block of East Baltimore Street on the north side, and this was the very heart of the Indian neighborhood. So what happened? I started to look for us in archives, high and low, everywhere, and I found more than I was expecting. I found pictures of the Indian Center in the Baltimore City Archives. I did a lot with Sanborn maps, which are actually fire insurance maps that show you aerial views of the neighborhood and how they've changed through time. I found our community leaders in the periodical archives, like here's Sister Linda's mom, my husband's grandmom, the Indian Center when it was a bustling place, and a lot of people don't even know that their relatives are in the archives. There's the same stoop. Indian Education when it first started. Turns out the entire neighborhood was slated to be raised, and a diverse coalition of citizens got together and saved anything that was saved at all, and Indian people were involved, as evidenced in this picture. There's the park where Aunt Jeanette first lived. And so also I found out that certain populations shift in and out of neighborhoods. They're like living things. So the church that was always an Indian church to me was first a Mariners church. And the Indian Center actually started in the back of the church. So here's Sister Dosha getting ready to fry fish. The bar at the corner of Ann and Fairmont, I finally found in a newspaper article from 1968 during the original Baltimore racial uprising following the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And here you can see it's a guy that got beat up at the volcano. I also found a picture of the bouncer from the volcano. This is Clyde Oxendine. We had the intertribal eat-in carry out in the unit block of South Broadway. Now it's a taco shop. I found many pictures of these places due to urban renewal because the Department of Planning actually took photos of the streets before they knocked everything down. So here's East Baltimore Church of God, the second oldest congregation established by Lumbees, and all the congregation on Baltimore Street outside of it in the early 1960s. Now it's the corner of that park. Here's the Moonlight Restaurant at the corner of Baltimore and Broadway, which was hugely important to the Lumbee people when they got here because it was one of the first places where they could go in and sit down and eat. And it was Greek owned, and they didn't care, you know, and also it was fine to just order a cup of coffee and then stay for hours. So a lot of the planning of the Indian Center and the church took place right here in the Moonlight, but today it's a house. You can see we still have the mailbox. The daycare used to be a blood bank. Now it's a drug rehab place. Another famous Indian bar, Sid's Ranch House. I found a picture of it because it was originally a movie theater, but now it's nothing. We had a Lumbee barbecue spot, which was absorbed into this church, and now the church is vacant, and it was actually added to the urban renewal plan just last year or so. So these things continue to happen, and they're ongoing. So that's why I've been conscious as I've continued to flesh out my walking tour. Here's a little Google map of all the sites. You can just see how many, get an idea of how many, of spurring gentrification through the cultural tourism, that could generate from this. I'm also working with a couple of dynamite designers. Robert Cronin is illustrating these sites important to our community. You could see East Baltimore Church of God, the Indian Center, South Broadway Church, the Moonlight. Many of them no longer exist, so he's bringing them back to life. These are to scale and accurate, the sign from the volcano taken from that article. And we're using them to create a print map whereby people can actually walk around and see what used to be in these places. And this is just a draft for now, but so you can see. And then here for context where you are in the city. So I know I'm out of time. I want to tell you one story very quickly. This is the McKim Center up on East Baltimore Street. I know it looks like the Parthenon, but it's not. And in the late 1950s, they were holding youth social dances. So figure this is when rock and roll was getting started. And that was a place where children of every race could come dance and enjoy the music in each other's company. In 1957, a photographer from Ebony magazine also attended a social dance at the McKim Center to get pictures for this article, Baltimore's Mystery People. Neither red nor white nor black, strange Indian tribe lives in world of its own. And somebody brought me a picture of this article, and I noticed right away in the center on the right was my Aunt Jeanette as a young girl. And I said, "Hey, Aunt Jeanette, do you know you're in an Ebony magazine?" And she was like, "Yes, I remember." A guy took my picture and he didn't say what he was going to do with it. And, I went back home to North Carolina to school for the year. And then somebody brought me this magazine, and the article really hurt my feelings because it says we don't know who we are, but I know who I am. And Aunt Jeanette sometimes gets frustrated with me. She's the elder with whom I'm closest as I do this work. She lives right across the street from me. I see her all the time. And I ask her a million questions, and she's like, "You expect me to remember stuff that happened 50, 60, 70 years ago?" And I was like, "Yeah, you remember." And she's like, "No, I don't." But I was able to get a copy of the magazine and bring it to Aunt Jeanette, and she was just overjoyed to see herself and her peers now as young people on the reservation in the neighborhood that's so transformed it's unrecognizable. And not only that, Aunt Jeanette went with me back to the McKim Center, and immediately she remembered where she was standing and who she was with and what they were listening to. And to me, this proves that the history is embedded in these places, but also embodied by us. So it's really important to retrace our steps and reactivate these materials to bring them out of the archives back to our people, because it gets all of the dark matter, the stuff in the ether, going again. It reactivates our heritage. One more short story. A friend of mine posted this picture of her mother in tribute on Facebook, and her mother died 30 years ago. When I saw it, I recognized the headband from a photo in the Baltimore News American archives. And I said, "Hey, Tammy, is this the same headband?" She said, "Yes. Are there any more pictures from that shoot?" And I was like, "Well, there are, but they're mostly of another guy from our community dancing. I don't think it's anything that would interest you. Do you still want to see?" And she's like, "Oh, yes, please." She really wanted to see this picture because if you look in the background, that's Tammy with her headband on, and in front of her is her mother. And Tammy said, "My mom never danced, but she did dance that way on that day." And so we were able to repatriate her mom's dancing feet. This work's gotten a lot of publicity recently. All this stuff is very Googleable if you're interested. It's been in the Washington Post, the Baltimore Sun, Smithsonian Magazine. I've been able to author or co-author a couple of pieces on the conversation about what we're doing. And if you'd like to learn more about my artistic practice, there's also a few interviews and articles out there. And here's my contact information. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. And now we are going to hear from Shayna.
And Joe, thank you so much and actually, thank you so much for sharing such a beautiful presentation. I learned a lot from what you shared and also about the Lumbee people and also Baltimore and your amazing practice and how you are engaging in the archives. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge the city of New Orleans, acknowledge that the city of New Orleans exists on the land of indigenous people, a site referred to by the Choctaw as Bubancha, meaning many languages spoken there, and the ancestral land stored by the Chitimacha, the Takapa, the Choctaw, the Homa, the Natchez, and the Tunica. The indigenous people of this region were subjected to the violence of settler colonialism, genocide, forced migration, and land appropriation to make way for the formation of a colonial enterprise and carceral landscape built on the bodies, flesh, and blood of African captives and their descendants. The African burial grounds upon which the city of New Orleans stands, of blood, bones, chains, separation, erasure, and death, social death, and resistance, speaks to the brutality of chattel slavery, labor exploitation, reproductive control, fungibility, and the and the violence committed against Black people. The geographic shifts and forced migration and dislocation, land dispossession, Jane and Jim Crow policies, and structures of confinement, segregation, and disposability are the backdrop upon which displacement occurs and is perpetuated daily within the Black geographies that make up the city of New Orleans. Again, my name is Shayna Griffin. I'm a Black feminist activist, independent researcher, applied sociologist, artist, and mother. I would like to thank Alternate Roots for inviting me to share my work and my interdisciplinary practice. And also would like to use this opportunity to acknowledge all of the work that has been done to get us here this weekend. Both the visible and the invisible work, bringing us all together. With that, I would like to thank Alternate Roots team, tech folks, the presenters, organizers, everyone. This is a very beautiful experience. I'm going to start with the premise from which my work is rooted in the space from which I'm entering the conversation, using the Displaced Project as a point of reference in my recent studio work, Displacing Blackness, Cartographies of Violence, Extraction, and Disposability. As I share my practice in using art, historical inquiry, and activism as sites of engagement and intervention in addressing historical and contemporary forms of Black displacement, dislocation, confinement, and disposability in land use planning and housing policies and development. The work of the Displaced Project is rooted in my work called Punctuate. Punctuate is a feminist research, art, and activist initiative based here in the city of New Orleans, foregrounding the embodied aesthetics and practices of Black feminist thought to address intersecting forms of everyday violence and subjectivity Black women, queer people, our families, and communities experience. The mission of Punctuate is to disrupt ideological policies and practices of control, punishment, and disposability through engaged research, art, and activism, and spatial imaginaries that center the epistemologies and practices of Black feminist thought to build socially and economically just communities. Punctuate is a vision, it's a strategy, it's a practice, it's a goal, it's an action, and a site of resistance, possibilities, and imagined futures. Part of that vision is the Displaced Project. As you can see, I was so busy and excited to share with you and frame this work, I forgot to start to click this presentation. This is me in studio at the Contemporary Arts Center. As I mentioned, part of this work of Punctuate is Displaced, and as we begin, we're entering New Orleans. These are often images and sights and thoughts that people, that come to mind when folks think of New Orleans. Images like this one, this, and this. The fleur-de-lis, Mardi Gras, the cuisine, social and pleasure clubs, Black masking traditions, but rarely do people think of images like this, or images like this. New Orleans became the largest slave trading port in North America during the antebellum period. Images like this was quite common throughout the city. Here, this is a map from 1849 depicting different sites where Black people was bought and sold. You would notice in this map, through these Google pinpoints in red, markings where people were sold into slavery. Unlike most southern cities, where you had one central auction block in a town center, the city of New Orleans had over 50 places and sites that have been identified where people was bought and sold on the street, in public parks, public markets, private homes, slave pens, dungeons, hotels, banks, insurance companies, hospitals. It was all about the buying and the selling of human beings. We don't tend to think of images like these, and I'm showing this images specifically as relates to thinking deeply about historical markers of confinement and displacement and dislocation, and a reminder that displacement is not a new phenomenon, that it starts with slavery. In 1808, with the abolishment of the international slave trade, New Orleans became the largest slave trading post in the US, and what some historians will argue in North America. As a result of 3 technological advances that made this possible, thinking deeply about the cotton gin cultivation, new technologies with the cultivation of sugar and the steamboat, the theft of indigenous land, which was sold by Napoleon to Jefferson, doubled the size of the United States, making indigenous land available for planters to turn over into plantations. These plantations created an opportunity for planters to bring in more unfree labor to work the land. As a result, because of what New Orleans is strategically positioned on the Mississippi River as a port city, New Orleans became the site. It's really important that we holding space for this image is because of the work of the late Clyde Woods and Catherine McKittrick, who notes in Black Geographies and the Politics of Place, space is often occupied by the colonized, by the enslaved, and the incarcerated and the dispossessed. And in this work, when I'm thinking about and talking about Black geographies, it's really important that we mark the unmarkable, the ungeographic in our work. The Displaced Project. Displaced is a multimedia feminist and public history project tracing the geographies of Black displacement in land use planning, housing policies, and urban development here in the city. Beginning with the formation of the city and its cartographies of violence and racial slavery and indigenous genocide, Displaced illustrates historical and contemporary forms of property-led development and the property value of white social identity, through policies of disposability, divestment, slum clearance, urban renewal, privatization of public services, all narrating the spatialization of race and gender in land use planning and development. As a project, Displaced integrates critical research methods with activism and socially engaged art to raise awareness on the multiple ways the violence of displacement takes place and shape in Black life, and explores how housing policies become sites of everyday violence and subjectivity. This project consists of a 16-page timeline booklet, a walking tour, a lecture series, zine, and collaborations, as well as a forthcoming interactive website, atlas, and exhibition. Displace is designed to create a more just and liberatory future by interrogating our understanding of displacement to include extraction and dislocation, erasure, enslavement, confinement, disposability, policing, criminalization, and disappearance. And I'm gonna come back to this long list, but it's really important that we think about how displacement has a trajectory and what that trajectory looks like through the institutions from slavery to land theft and policies of harm and violence that reproduces systemic practices of racial and gender inequalities and social exclusion. Displace asks, how do we disrupt historical patterns of Black displacement and dislocation? How do we challenge hidden and explicit forms of racial, sexual, and reproductive violence? Is it possible, truly, truly possible, to create housing policies that don't reinforce carceral landscape and colonial imaginaries? These are just images of the displaced timeline in zine. Displaced zine here. 2 images of the Geographies of Black Displacement walking tour. And now we're going to shift from Displaced project to the ways in which I have been working to visualize what displacement can look like through my artwork. This is an image called Violent Formation and the Fungibility of Blackness, which is part of Displacing Blackness, which is a visual conceptualization of what the Displaced project forthcoming exhibition will look like. This work entails an engagement with historical research and policies of divestment, residential segregation, slum clearance, and tenant laws. I'm using archival research and historical images and maps. And here, these are recreations of maps illustrating what displacement can look like as a visual representation, engaging people and communities and publics on how we can address the housing crisis that the city is currently facing. I'm going to briefly scroll through some of these images as I speak more about this work. Using personal narratives and stories of resistance, Displacing Blackness chronicles the afterlife of slavery through the institutionalization of violence, racial and gender violence and spatial segregation, again, land use planning, and discriminatory policies, often designed to make Black people disappear. From abstract work depicting the violent screams of bondage and dispossession to the recreation of a federal housing office where policymakers created urban divestment. Here we go, urban divestment and exclusionary mortgage lending through underwriting policies, to personal narratives of displacement, as well as narratives and histories honoring Black women organizing in public housing. Displacing Blackness examines the multiple ways displacement takes place and shape in Black life. Here, I'm showing you images of places where my mother once lived, starting in 1959 when she moved to the city of New Orleans from Donaldsonville, Louisiana. As you can see, as was mentioned previously with Ashley, many of the places where my mother once lived no longer exist, nor does many of the neighborhoods. Here is an image of, I should say, landfill of an apartment building that once stood here in a desired public housing development, where my mother moved in 1969 after relocating 12 times. She resided in Iberville development for 5 years before moving to the Iberville development, moving from the Desire Public Housing Development to the Iberville Public Housing Development. She resided in Iberville Public Housing Development for 25 years. The building where she lived no longer exists as well. And this is an image of the house that she purchased in 1999 before she recently passed away in September of last year. Also included in the work of Theirs Was a Movement, of Displacing Blackness is Theirs Was a Movement Without Marches. Theirs Was a Movement Without Marches is a research and public history project that I'm currently working on, documenting the ways Black women living in public housing are often situated between ideological frameworks that seek to control their sexual and reproductive lives, discriminatory housing policies, and also the politics of disgust and blame that uses stereotypes, fears, and myths to control their families and also the neighborhoods in which they live. This project examines how Black women, starting in the 1970s to the present, fought against these frameworks of control, rendering visible their own agencies and commitment to engaging in protest, offering abolitionist frameworks that goes beyond the realms of marches, proclamations, media attention, and glamorized figures. Hidden within the history of public housing and subsidized housing in the city are the narratives of these Black women. In the show that I had at the CAC, you can see here, these are names. The names are not visible based on the view of this image, but it's names of 135 Black women who organized in decade-long advocacy and organizing efforts, where they stood in the marges of traditional civil rights and social justice activism, and was not always recognized simply because of their housing, their subsidy status, residing in public housing, and because of their income. The biographies and political agency, activism and struggles, triumphs, setbacks, and experiences of these low-income Black women are often invisible or marginalized in historical narratives of Black freedom struggles and Black women's liberation movements. But within the work of Displacing Blackness, I use it as an opportunity to honor their work and celebrate their work. These are some of the images of women who I just referenced. And with that, Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Shana. And I want to welcome back Ashley. Wow, y'all's work is so important, and like my mind is overwhelmed with like what is the entry point into our conversation together. But I just want to start by saying thank you for both of your presentations and the work that you all are doing, because in the midst of this moment of what seems to be hyper gentrification and development that our communities often bear the brunt of, makes this work very timely and urgent for people to see. So I guess as an entry point to our conversation, can you talk more about how you both got into integrating the archival practice into your art practice, and how do you see those two things kind of living alongside each other?
Sure.
First, yeah.
Oh, well, first, thank you so much, Shana, for your presentation and for your work and for being who you are in the world. It's, again, just such an honor to be in conversation with you. And I noticed so many overlaps and synergies with what we're both doing. I also am a big fan of Clyde Woods. And I feel like there's a real connection between Baltimore and New Orleans besides. But to answer Joe's question, and thank you, Joe, I guess I got started by being a fan of our family stories and just being fascinated by stories. Like everything I have a degree in or have studied, I didn't realize it was something you could go to school to do or like make a career out of it, or there was a fancy name for it. But what I did learn is that we have to learn to privilege other kinds. Sorry, y'all, Baltimore. we have to learn to privilege other kinds of archives, right? Like they're not just the ones in the library or the university, they're also what our elders know, our houses that collect all of the ephemera of generations of our family. If we can hold on to our things, which is like, you know, a little tenuous being people of color in crazy situations over time, but that's how it started. And then I got into the institutional archives because I couldn't find what I was looking for in the landscape. Like, kind of, I was just trying to back up what the stories were telling me. Like, you're telling me all this was here and now it's gone? Like, there's got to be some kind of record of us. And it turns out there's a lot. You just have to know how to look for it and how to decode all the information, because it's not always neatly packaged or filed away to make it convenient for us to find.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley. I see this as an opportunity. I'm gonna just put it out there. We're gonna be working together and I'm excited about that. Thinking both about your work, which I'm very inspired by. Also, years ago, Clyde Williams was a good friend of mine, and we often talked about doing work together in Baltimore. And I didn't get a chance to go to Baltimore to work with him until I had to fly in for his service. And so I am excited about the prospects. We haven't even discussed this yet, but I'm excited about the prospects of and doing an amazing interchange between New Orleans and Baltimore, and the ways in which we both are engaging both the archive and also thinking about land use planning and the stories and narratives of our people as we move this work forward. When I think about the archives, Joe, I think deeply about, similarly to what Ashley mentioned, there are many archives in which we can engage to document the histories of our people. And the documentation is really key. It's almost like excavating, because this is one of the dangers of displacement. Displacement is truly about erasure. And what I find in the work that I'm doing, there's a trajectory in which displacement takes place. And I read this long list, right? And that list thinking about starting with extraction, extracting the wealth, extracting the people, extracting the land, extracting the resources. That extraction is directly tied to dispossession, is tied to confinement. You cannot displace a community without confining them into another, confining their life chances, the skewed, just confining people in general. When we think about incarceration, both in this country, when I think about it in the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans, it's really important that to recognize we do a very good job warehousing people in prisons and jails as a form of confinement. And we do the same thing with regards to spatial residential segregation as another form of confinement, displacing from one location and confining to another. There's a lot of danger there, because once you confine, then you can justify that erasure. And it requires us we often find ourselves in positions where we have to literally find our people. The same way enslaved people will, put up notices and advertisements trying to find their loved ones, to recreate or reconnect to a sense of home that you have been dispossessed of. That erasure is so key because it assumes that you come from nothing. As Ashley mentioned, in terms of doing the research and coming across these planning documents in the city of Baltimore, if you were just relying on that alone and not communicating, engaging within a community of indigenous communities, you wouldn't know that that document, that historical document is wrong. And you see that a lot when you're engaging in the archives. There's a lot of silences and there's a lot of violence within the archive. There's also opportunities. And there's not one archive. We can't just rely on these institutional forms. And the reason why I'm putting a stress on erasure is because once you erase, then you can justify blaming a community for problems that they did not cause. And once you blame, that blame enables the ability to justify your mistreatment, your policing, your surveillance, and eventual criminalization and disappearance. That's what displacement does. And it's one of the reasons why I engage a framework of displacement, being able to trace the past into the present, and less so of a framework around gentrification, which only allows us to see what's happening in the moment and not see the historical trajectory of how we got there. Because I'm an abolitionist, it's also important to think about how we're creating the future and the present. And seeing the archive as one opportunity of that engagement, and also expanding the definition of what an archive is. And I think is really important in how we're using the archive and using our own artistic practices to shift our own imaginations and to create and recreate, to make visible the invisible, because many of our communities, when we think about Indigenous people and Black people, especially thinking about Indigenous people who are not supposed to be here, you know, and then Black people are inherently considered disposable often in a way, both as relates to connections to the land.
Ooh, so much food for thought. Thank you both. So oftentimes maps are symbols of the colonial project. And so I found it interesting how you both are remapping and using maps in a more liberatory way. And so I'm not sure really what my question is here, other than getting your views from the projects you both presented of how like these reclamations of maps as tools of the very things you both were talking about, displacement, erasure, how you have seen reusing maps as like a tool of liberation for the communities in which you both are working in.
So, I mean, is it possible when we answer this question if we could get the screen shared? I want to go back to an image that I shared. I realized I didn't talk about it. And I'm curious, actually, if you would be willing to do the same with the image, the new maps that you're creating, just to bring our attention to it as you speak. Let's see if I have access yet. So here, this is just a side view, but when I spoke about the map of the city of New Orleans from 1849, indicating those places where people was bought and sold, this is a reimagined map in real time using wood and handmade nails from the 1800s. These nails are placed in the exact locations of those places, referencing the financial district of the city of New Orleans, or what we refer to today as the Central Business District, the historical French Quarter, and the Esplanade Marigny area. In here, I think is really important, how do we bring attention to what many people may not be aware of, and think deeply and reimagining maps, not just thinking about maps, and also recognizing maps are often hard to read and understand. Also thinking about how, what you mentioned, Jill, maps as also colonial symbols and markers. What is our other creative ways to engage people in both the horrors and also the opportunities of how can we think about the communities in which we reside and live in differently. This is a artwork that correlates with the previous image. I'm sorry, this one is referred to as the trade in this afterlife, referring to the trade, as I mentioned before, New Orleans becoming the largest slave trading post in the country during the antebellum period. Here, this is called the selling, referring to, these are also handmade nails from the 1800s. This represents 15 pounds of nails, like 15 pounds of flesh. And so the selling as it relates to the disposability of Blackness in terms of who will be next. Also, these are also maps that I recreated. These are maps from 1878, maps of the city grid. This piece is called, as I think I mentioned, Violent Formation and the Fungibility of Blackness, indicating the violence that took place with forming the city, thinking both about the tensions and the resistance that took place, also acknowledging the ways in which the first levees created in the city were created by enslaved people. And then also from this side of the image, it shows we can't see it here, but a flattening out of this tension and resistance to become the city itself, which is reflected in this image, and how the city is built on top of these African burial grounds. but also show as the city flattens out. When you look at it from the present, you see a shift where the disposability of Blackness, thinking about the push out, where the past and the present become one and the same. And then this is another image, again, using the maps from 1878. This is called Regulated Movement. And all three of these images are referred as part of a Cartographies of Violence series. And so I think using maps becomes an opportunity. Both are of acknowledging the horrors and violence of indigenous genocide and settler colonialism and racial slavery and disposability. It also allows us to reimagine what the future can look like. Oftentimes when we're thinking about, land use planning in the present and how we want to reconnect to the land, we often take a very historical approach, and we sometimes can re-engage in the same policies or practices that we're trying to undo by not reflecting back and reconnecting ourselves to the histories and the stories and ancestral ways of existing and not romanticizing, but really lifting up what we can do in the present. But we can't do anything in the present without having a strong understanding of the past. And so that re-engagement of maps and recreating new maps and new ways of being. I often use timelines in my work, and I'm really thinking deeply right now, creating not just the historical timelines, but a timeline of what the future should look like, right, as we are reimagining. And so, Ashley, I'm gonna shift back to you because I'm really excited about how you want to engage this question.
Wow, you're brilliant. Okay, good question, Joe. Let's see. So, mapping is definitely a colonial exercise, and I want to be thoughtful about something that Clyde Woods, who was from Baltimore, he wrote, our ancestor Clyde Woods, that always sticks with me, in a piece called Life After Death. So he said he had observed city after city where Black communities are just being destroyed. And then in academia, the scholars are doing all this research so they can almost predict the death of Black communities. Like, it's almost a foregone conclusion that, and this goes for indigenous folks as well. And he asked this question about, like, why are we doing all this research? Is it because we're obsessed with death and, like, this is the conclusion that we accept as well, or are we doing something else? So that's something I keep right at the fore in my own thinking, or try to, that, this is really about mapping for the future. It's engaging with the past to think about what we're doing in the future. A critique I've had of this work too is, like, I think people are just naturally predisposed to be either oriented toward the past or, obsessed with the future. And we all have a pretty hard time being present right now in this age of distraction. But I am, like, totally a past person. So when I was doing this work, I was, like, so nostalgic and weeping over the reservation I'll never see. And, like, all what's missing from this is, like, the fashion and the music and what it felt like in the neighborhood. And, all that only serves to a point, because, like, how are we engaging with this stuff, looking for instructions for the things to carry forward? So all that to say, how powerful is it to take this official government endorsed, produced scholarly document and give it back to the people it was supposed to represent, and for them to say, like, this is so wrong, it can't even be fixed. This is our community, and it's just full of life and information and good memories. And then, like, to have the conversation to decode, what did all this mean? Like, how can I help make this into a format that the rest of the world will acknowledge not only we were here, but we're still here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to make the new map.
Mm-hmm.
You can even realize things about your own community through time, through mapping. Like this little Google map that I started with, the icons that are the darkest colors are the oldest sites in the community. And then over time, as we start to spread the colors lighten up. And this is a very zoomed in detailed. So, you know, with the map of all of East Baltimore, you can see like most of the community made it out to Dundalk, where I am. This one I think is particularly going to be a powerful intervention because it's going to be a print object, and I'm insisting on it being in print. It'll be online and a cell phone tour and all that too, but I want it in print because my primary audience are those elders who made this community what it was, and they're not going to walk around with their cell phones, and they deserve a beautiful object to represent the neighborhood of their youth. And I'll go ahead and say, like, our people have a complicated relationship with things in print and writing, stemming from the way, like, you know, even agreements, the written word is prioritized in Western society over what's said, you know. And then coming from sharecropping families, many times the elders who came to Baltimore only got a third or fourth, fifth grade education because they kept having to leave school. They couldn't really learn to read or write properly, and then maybe they taught themselves later in life. So this is like a very valuable thing to have, like, to see that you're recognized in print in a document that somebody spent a lot of time on, that acknowledges history that you made, that is continuing, you know, because of the legacy that you put down here. So we're putting ourselves back on the map. We're not on, that's the only map I know of, that one from 1969, that even acknowledges us. So here we are back on our own map.
I love that, putting our communities back on the map. So I'm gonna do something that I have never done and leave the last two questions to you all and see if each of you would be willing to ask a question that has piqued your interest from each other's presentation. And I want that to be how we close out this conversation. So not to put you all on the spot, but it just seems like so much synergy between the two projects that you both presented, that I would also love to hear your questions for each other.
Shana, how do you think Black and Indigenous folks can work together toward the same things that you and I are working toward? Like, what should we be lifting up?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that, okay, there's a lot there. And I don't want to take the ways in which we have shared today, this evening, and also acknowledging the synergy between our work. I want to take that for granted, recognize within our communities, there's a lot of repair that needs to take place, and also understanding. And also thinking about the ways in which the land has tied us together. You know, thinking both as it relates to Indigenous people being a land-based people, and how Blackness, because of racial slavery, chattel slavery, there was a process by which Blackness also became a land-based people very differently. And so as such, for me, I often tell people, you know, who are really interested and committed to doing transnational organizing, I said, if you believe in the sovereignty of Indigenous people, then you're already committed to doing transnational organizing by acknowledging their sovereignty within North America. We can start there too, right? And then two, I think once we start to do, again, I am passionate, you know, about history as well. It's sort of like my first entry point. Once we have a better understanding and a commitment to a practice of history, we see the ways in which our identities and our experiences are very similar. But often we're not fully aware of that. And when you was talking about sharecropping in your family, I often, you know, was reminded of this sharecropping and how sharecropping has, you know, thinking about sharecropping and the ways in which we are over romanticizing land and getting back to the land today and thinking about how the land has not always been kind to us, and how land, the beauty of stewarding the land was exploited to the point where the land was controlling people and our experiences and our identities. And so I think deeply about how can we engage in a, not just a practice, but sharing this history and connection, where we can see there's these very strong correlations between our communities and our experiences, and how we went from, black codes and sharecropping and plantation arrangements to residential segregation and urban renewal and carcerality and criminalization. And it's not like we went from this one thing and then something in the middle just disappeared and all of a sudden we pop back on the scene and like have these, living in these really horrific situations now. It's like it was a trajectory, right? And also the ways in which one mode of, so like when I think about the US political economy, starting with before the country was formed, think about what is those ways in which US political economy directly tied to reproductive violence made it possible for settler colonialism to emerge, because their reproductive strategy was all about the control of indigenous, controlling the reproductive capabilities of indigenous people. Once you have control of reproductive capabilities, you gain control of the land. And the housing strategy is settler colonialism for extermination. And then when you turn that around, when you think about Blackness and slavery, the housing strategy is plantation arrangements and confined residential spaces. And the reproductive violence strategy is about control and controlling the reproductive capabilities of enslaved women to build empire, to reproduce a labor. So using indigenous land to build empire, like extracting the land, extracting the people, exploiting the people, exploiting the land. And so in a very long-winded way to answer your question, I feel like the history is really important and key, and not to romanticize and not to not acknowledge the ways in which we have survived have not always looked good. And, I don't want to pretend on that. And I also think that there are so many ways in which, because we only engage indigenous people as living on reservations, out of sight, out of mind, we cannot see indigenous people in front of us in urban landscapes. Because the way the US narrative assumes that indigenous people are either dead or on a shelf that you can buy or exist on a reservation outside, right? And then there's these ways in which the Hollywood versions of what indigeneity is, that kind of like shapes our worldview or what we think, and how do we dispel that? And I think the work and the research that you're doing is showing that indigeneity is all around us. It's not just this, 1492 phenomenon, like indigeneity has continued. The numbers have shifted, but people are still here. And being able to see that, I think, is really powerful. So reflecting that question back, I'm curious about how you're thinking about our work, how you would think our communities can engage is one question. And I'm curious about your thoughts. So to respond to your own question. And then two, I'm really excited to learn about the ways you have been able to engage some of the elders who are still around, and also creating a space which they can call their own, and how this project is lend itself to bringing in younger folks as well, like both leaning on and being led by the elders and also engaging younger people. Because I know sometimes, as you mentioned, elders can, their patience can be sharp with young people who think we know everything, or younger people who especially think they know everything. So I'm just curious about thinking about your project, the engagement, and centering the elders and helping move the work, and then also bringing in younger voices. So making it like, what does that multi-generational work looks like, and how the project lends itself to such?
Yeah. Wow. What you were saying about the way stewardship of land has been exploited and it gets painted in a different way now, it reminded me of when I first started working at the Indian Center with young people and then engaging the elders, because I always think that's so important. I was like, well, we're gonna have a community garden. Can y'all come show us how to farm? And they were like, I left North Carolina, so I would never have to do this again. Wouldn't know. And then finally a couple did. And like most Lumbee elder people, if they have a space too, they do have a little garden here in Baltimore. I mean, there are many ways that North Carolina is here and Baltimore is even there now as a result of our community's migration. But yeah, that's true. Well, with the elders, I feel like almost I can't do this work fast enough because they're passing away. And I find also that often my elders, they feel like they don't have anything to contribute or anything to say, like they just live their, I mean, there was a Lumbee rock and roll group, y'all, that was secularly famous. Like more people than just Indian people remember who these guys are, the Chavis brothers. And I had the opportunity to speak with one of them a couple months ago, and he's like, I don't have anything to say. I don't remember. My life wasn't interesting. And I'm like, you know, so I think young people can continually remind our elders that we are interested and we want to know about your lives and like, you know, how did you think? What was it like? What did it feel like, smell like, look like at this point in this place? What can you tell us to guide us into the future? I think that reverence is super important both ways, elders for young people for elders, and also like the willingness to meet folks where they are. I'm super impressed like that it's not common that you find folks who understand that settler colonialism wasn't an event. It's more like a structure. It's ongoing. Like Indian people never wake up in this land and it's not settler colonialism today. Like, and in American studies, which is my most recent field, like I went down this really deep rabbit hole of trying to understand why my experience is such that it is. They teach you that these things don't end, that systems perpetuate themselves, that we can't really like research or think our ways out of this stuff. And being an artist and you know, I feel like we can imagine our ways out of this, like think of another way, but I didn't quite get there yet. Like I'm stuck. And I feel like you are at the place where you're already thinking of what else can we do. So maybe probably it's Black and Indigenous artists working together to you know, figure something else out that doesn't demand that the master's tools dismantle the master's house, because they never will. Yeah.
I was just struck by what you just said, you know, thinking about, you know, I often talk, when I've done talks, you know, communicate and emphasize when one mode, a dominant mode of control and domination is never stops. It may not be as dominant, it may shrink while another one emerge, but it's always an ongoing project, right? And so just thinking about settler colonialism, and even as we're thinking about our commitments now, to acknowledging the land, you know, how are we engaging in that work and being very conscious how acknowledgement sometimes, you know, we have to, like, what does that truly mean? How are people truly embodying that as it relates to thinking about our everyday practices, going beyond just that politic, because you can acknowledge, check it off the list and keep moving, right? How are we really truly embodying that in our work? And when I see your work, I'm really struck and inspired. And also recognizing the work that you're doing is not your work alone. And I think about the work that I'm doing with this project, Theirs Was a Movement, sharing the stories of Black women who engaged, like I mentioned, decades-long advocacy work, documenting that, and then sharing with them and recognizing what you created is you're just getting started, because there's all of these other stories that have to come in, and recognizing what you're creating is not just for you alone. It's a community project. it's a public project. And creating that space, and how do we see ourselves as facilitating that process, not owning, right? And the same is true, how to really emphasize the ways in which, what does it mean to steward the land? I've heard people do land acknowledgements, and the framing is as if indigenous people, as if we own the land itself, and that's the complete, using ownership, like referencing acknowledgement becomes a form of ownership through this colonial lens. It's like, actually, the way we think about ownership is not how folks were stewarding the land, and taking care of and learning from and being in harmony with, and then how the land was used, abusively so, towards Black and Indigenous people, to the point where we had to leave. When I think about Black migration patterns, just the ways in which you walked us through moving from the Carolinas to Baltimore, and also how when people came together to create home, they clustered together, which is really beautiful. And so I'm struck by that, and I'm just, yes, I'm overwhelmed and excited and struck by what you have shared.
The feeling's very mutual. Thank you so much for being in conversation with me and even wanting to work together. I would really welcome that opportunity.
And then also our connection to Clyde Woods. I'm so excited. Clyde, you guys was like the most. He was amazing. His work in Baltimore, his research related to New Orleans and the Mississippi Delta, an amazing scholar. And his scholarship was so amazing, also because of his commitment to organizing, activism, and listening to the people.
So,
yes.
Yeah, thank you all so much, because you gave us all so much to chew on, and you all heard it here first. So we're all anxiously awaiting this collaboration between you two. And just thank you all so much just for showing how these things are all connected, the past to the present and the future, and how we can reimagine things to create these, to use your phrase, Shana, geographies of possibility. And so again, thank you both. And yeah, it's been my pleasure to be with you both and to learn from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you, Indy, for curating us.
Yes.
Yes, thanks, Indy. All of the magic.
And the technical support.
Thank you, Shanae and Ashley and Jyoti, for this timely and life-affirming conversation. Indeed, the artists can dream and lead our way to a different future. Please show them some affirmation and gratitude in the chat. Perhaps you share a couple of takeaways from this evening. Yeah. Let's give gratitude and love to all of those who have supported this session and this weekend. To the tech team, to Bancha Lenguas for our Spanish interpretations, to Coco for holding down our ASL interpretations. We're out here dreaming and weaving and creating new ways of language justice. Thank you to all of the presenters, to, again, our amazing tech team. I know I already said tech team, but I just want to give them so much love as they gave us grace. And to staff, XCOM, and Rooters for this entire weekend. I'm going to pass it to representatives of the Gender Equity Working Group, Spirit and Ruta, for a closing ceremony.
Peace, everyone. I'm Spirit,
And I am Duta.
and we are really honored to be here with you this evening. How is your family?
How's your family?
How are your ancestors and your transcestors? How were they breathing? Are you creating a world where your ancestors and transcestors are fully expressed? Given that they could have been a trans or gender nonconforming plus person, this water represents the water that's in our bloodlines.
We give thanks for our transcestors.
We give thanks for our cis ancestors.
We give thanks for our queer ancestors.
We give thanks for the ancestors whose gender expressions we did not know.
We honor the validity of our ancestors who couldn't fully live their truth. How's your family?
How is your family?
How are you breathing? How are your children and your grandchildren? How are the children in your family? Is your home a sanctuary for you? A sanctuary for them? Are you creating a world where you can be fully expressed? Where they can be fully expressed? Given that you or your family members could be a TGNC plus person. And this sand represents the cells which make up our bones, our skin, our muscles, ligaments, tendons, and our nervous system.
We give thanks for the parts of us that are hidden.
We give thanks to the parts that we show.
We give thanks for the parts of us that we feel shame about.
We give thanks to the parts of us that feel broken, judged, and alone.
We give thanks for the parts of us that feel empowered and confident.
We give thanks to our generosity and joy.
We give thanks for our anger.
We give thanks for our sweetness.
We give thanks for the parts of us which remain unknown to us.
We give thanks for our complexity and layers which make us who we are.
How is your family?
How's your family?
How are you preparing for the unborn?
How will they breathe?
Will your home be a sanctuary for them, given that they could possibly be a TGNC plus person?
This fire and smoke represents the hope and dreams that we have for the future.
What belief systems must you release to prepare for the unborn?
And what are you willing to deconstruct and unlearn for the sake of the unborn?
We allow the unborn to tell their stories.
We allow the unborn to choose their own names, genders, and expressions.
We allow the unborn to choose their own clothing and their own friends.
We allow the unborn to choose how and who they love.
We allow. We allow. We allow. How is your family?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arigato.
Thank you again so much, Spirit and Ruta, for your gifts. I'm sitting here thinking of these questions. How is my family? How am I preparing for the unborn? How will they breathe? I hope that you carry these messages and these questions with you as well. I'm pondering so much still from Shayna and Ashley's presentation. Thank y'all again. And now I'm going to pass it on to our beloved Ron to lead us in song and spirit. The spirit of the song, not spirit the person. Ron, it's all you, boo.
All right. I think we are doing it. Greetings, everyone. And I hope you've had a beautiful Roots weekend. I would love for folks, if you'd like to close out in song, and if you want the opportunity to potentially be audible, to join in the Zoom room where Chanel has just put the link in the chat. So I would love to see some faces pop here into the grid if you can, if you so desire. You are also, of course, welcome to stay in the live stream and sing along or listen in from wherever you may be and not do the Zoom participatory possibility if you'd rather not. But I'm gonna give folks a few minutes to click on, or I guess you'll have to copy that link and paste it into a browser in order to access the Zoom room. So I'll give folks a few minutes. You can also click on the Porch Sit In link on the microsite, which I believe is rootsweekend.org. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff. So while folks are figuring out how they want to be, where they want to be virtually. Oh, I see some folks popping in. This is exciting. I would like to let y'all know how we are going to approach this. The way I would like to try this working out is that folks are going to have an opportunity in the Zoom room. You can change your name and add the word yes at the beginning of your name so that you can be randomly unmuted by one of our wonderful tech folk and sing live with me during various parts of the week. We're not going to do the full-on unmute everybody audio chaos, which Zoom has happened when everybody tries to do something together unmuted. But we're going to try to see if we can at least get a few voices besides my own into the proverbial mix. So again, if you come in, won't be singing, Wendy says. If you come into the Zoom space and you're down to be unmuted and to sing along, just put a yes at the beginning of your name. See a few more folks coming in. Just put a yes. Yeah, and if folks in the Zoom room can be muted for now, we will get it started. Oh yes, look, Baby Luz is in the grid. It's a beautiful thing. I'm not on the live stream, so I don't know if we're gridding on the live stream or if it's like speaker mode, but there's some beautiful faces popping up here. Folks in the Zoom, please make sure you mute your live stream. If you've got it up, you can also close it out. I hear that the live stream is gridding. All right, so we've got folks here in the space. People can be on or off camera as you'd like. All right, well, it's lovely to see folks who are here. Again, please type yes in your name if you're down to participate in the song and be unmuted. So here's the situation, friends. I'm gonna be very transparent. Let me slow down for our interpretation, folks. I'm going to be transparent. My voice is not great right now. I have laryngitis. And in the spirit of the congregational singing tradition in the Black Methodist Church in which I grew up in, anytime I am in a space to sing with folks, I always say that all voices are not only welcome, but encouraged to participate, because that's what makes the singing great. And so I am going to embrace that today here as your virtual song leader and be like, whatever I can do is what I can do. And I won't do anything more than what I can do. So that being said, I was gonna do 2 songs, but I'm only gonna do 1. And I'm gonna do the one that is the easiest on my voice to lead. So yes, we're modeling self and community care. Here we go. So let me tell y'all, I spent the pandemic unfolding months in a very out of body space. I didn't quite know where I was, and that was cool. It was actually wonderful. And I had a lot of songs come to me during that time, in dreams, in walking meditations, in conversations that I had with myself or other people, sitting with giant oak trees, just songs coming through. And one of the songs that came to me feels particularly great to share now. And it's very simple. Maybe it will become a Roots classic. I would be so honored because it's very easy. And so for folks who are in the chat and who are in the Zoom room, so the chat can be live. You can be in the live stream chat or in the Zoom room. I would love for you to type in a word that affirms something that someone has done, said, or shared during this week or this weekend that you would like to call into the space, because the structure of the song is one of affirmation. So it could be that someone's laughter or their magic or their clarity, or their strength, or their power, or their brilliance. 2-syllable words are particularly great for this song, but just do whatever it is you got to do. Spirituality. So anything someone did that you did, any entity that you have engaged with during this Roots weekend that you would like to affirm, think of a word that affirms them. And feel free to type it either in the Zoom chat or in the live stream video chat. I'm gonna give you a moment to do that. So we've got some words: spirituality, ritual, grace, intersection, archive, home. These are beautiful. Thank you all. Oh, this is gorgeous. Patience, yes, ashe. Beautiful. Superpower. Self-determination, Sankofa. Oh, these are beautiful, y'all. I don't know if we'll get to all of them, but I love it. So I'm gonna, as we would if we were all together, I'm gonna show you all or sing for you how the song's gonna go, so you can get a sense of it. And then I think it will all make a lot of sense. Okay, so here we go. See, I got my fancy mic so that I don't have to talk super loud. It's official. Everything here is official. All right. So the song goes like this. Maybe you can snap where you are. If you've got that background, boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, boom, boom, boom. Okay, think y'all are feeling that? You can add in your own little whatever it is you want in that general mix. And the lyrics go like this. I appreciate your magic. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your magic. Thank you for being here. We're just gonna go with magic for a little bit so you'll get it. I appreciate your magic. Thank you for being. I appreciate your magic. Thank you for being here. So y'all can keep the snap groove. And I just want to say that if we were together, the really beautiful thing that could happen is everybody in the circle could look at the person to their left or their right and have a word that affirms that person in the circle that they toss out in each round as we go around. So we're affirming each individual person collectively. We are thanking them for being present with whatever it is that they are bringing. It could be their anger, it could be their sorrow, it could be their rage, it could be their laughter, it could be their joy, it can be their brilliance. It can be comfortable and uncomfortable things, but we're all in it together, and we affirm that we are all here, we are divine, we are blessed, and we are grateful that we're present with each other. So even in this virtual space, that's what we're gonna do. So I've got a ton of words up here. It's beautiful. Thank you, everyone. I love this. And I'm just gonna kind of ping pong between the Zoom chat and the Vimeo live stream chat. And we're gonna have a little affirmation that goes around. So technical staff, folks, I'm down for people in the grid to be unmuted as you feel called to unmute them. There will be a delay, and it's cool. Maybe it'll be like a nice little like echo kind of thing. We'll see how it goes. It's all good.
Appreciate your magic.
Oh, wow. I'm with Nicole.
Thank you for being.
Go ahead, Nicole.
I appreciate your magic.
Oh, this is sweet.
Thank you for being.
All right, I'm going to come in on this next one. I appreciate your patience. Thank you for being here. I like to do each one 4 times just to really get with it. I appreciate your patience. Thank you for being here. Think about it, how we showed up. I appreciate your patience. Yes. Thank you for being here. With all these technical things we do, I appreciate your patience. Bless you. And thank you for being here. Let's go on. Camille offered this one. I appreciate your clarity. Okay. Thank you for being here. Doom, boom, boom. I appreciate your clarity. We thank you for being here. I'm going to do 2 apiece because we want more of them. I appreciate your earth wisdom. Thank you, Leticia. Come on. Thank you for being here. Boom, boom, boom. I appreciate your earth wisdom. Yes. Thank you for being here. And Amy McCoy offered this one. I appreciate your fellowship. Come on. We're all here. Thank you for being here. Yes, it's redundant and beautiful. I appreciate your fellowship. Come on. And thank you for being here. And Natalie shared, I appreciate your Sankofa. Come on, come on. Thank you for being here. Come on, come on. I appreciate your Sankofa back and forth, yes. Thank you for being here. Gwilyn shared, I appreciate your archive. Okay. Thank you for being here. Doom, doom, doom. I appreciate your archive. Come on, come on. Thank you for being here. Nicole Garneau shared, I appreciate your ritual. Yes. Thank you for being here. Boom, boom, boom. I appreciate your ritual. Come on. Thank you for being here. Nicole Gergel offered, I appreciate your superpower. Come on. Thank you for being here. Doom, doom, doom. I appreciate your superpower. Come on. Thank you for being here. Let's see. I appreciate your becoming. I changed it a little bit. Remix. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Sharella, for offering that one. I appreciate your becoming. Yeah. Thank you for being here. And Ross said, hey, I appreciate your faith. Thank you for being here. Boom, boom, boom. I appreciate your faith. Boom. boom, boo, doo, doo, doo. Thank you for being here. Okay, we got here. I appreciate your self-determination. Okay, we got it in there. Thank you for being here. Boom, boom, boom. I appreciate your self-determination. Thank you for being here. And I'm just going to say, I appreciate your love. I thank you for being here. I appreciate your love. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, I thank you for being here. And since we're in the internet age, I'll say I appreciate your light as well. Thank you for being here. Boom, boom. I appreciate your light, your
as well.
Thank you for being here. And the theme, right? I appreciate the South. Come on. Thank you for being here. Boom, boom, boom. I appreciate, hey, Spirit, the South. Welcome, welcome. Come on. Thank you for being here. Beautiful, yes. I appreciate this land. Come on, come on. I thank you for being here. Boom, boom, harmonies. I appreciate this land. Come on, come on. I thank you for being.
I got one, Ron, if I can
Come on,
jump in.
Spirit. What is it?
I appreciate your transness.
Transness. Come on.
I thank you for being here. I appreciate your transness.
Hey, y'all. Come on.
I thank you for
Let's do that one some more times. Let's do that one some more time. Come on.
I appreciate your transness.
Yes, we do.
I thank you for being here.
I appreciate your transness. Come on. I thank you for being here. All right. Let's see. That was beautiful. I'm thinking, let's see, we need one more again, close it out. Let's see. Come on, what's coming? This is what it is. Hey, I appreciate your spirit. Thank you for being here. We're gonna do that 3 more times. We're gonna close it out. I appreciate your spirit. Thank you. I thank you for being here. 2 more times. Sing it to yourself. I appreciate your spirit. Come on. I thank you for being here. Now send it out to everybody out there in the world. I appreciate your spirit. And I thank you. I thank you for being here. Ashe, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for sharing your light, your love, your spirit, your patience, this togetherness in all the places that we are, in all the places that we've been. May we continue to affirm all that we are and can be. Ashe. Have a beautiful rest of your Sunday. May you have ease. I see you, Spirit. I'm thinking about ease. And may you have joy. And may you do something beautiful and delicious for yourself this evening. You know, like love up on yourself, even if it's something small. Especially big shout outs and thanks to all of the staff of varying kinds on the Roots team who have made this glorious event possible. Thank you so much. Technical staff, On the Roots staff, volunteer folks who got paid, folks who just showed up and did something beautiful. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. Thank you to everyone who showed up and joined at any point during Roots Weekend. Thank you to all the people who planned for months and months and months to make this work. I'm so glad to be a gender ambassador. I was going to call myself a gender agent. That's not what that word is. A gender ambassador. Thank you to the beautiful team who has helped us live into our values around affirming all of the ways we can show up with our genders, fluid and multiplicitous as they may be. Thank you to everyone. I don't even know who all to thank. I just feel thankful. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank you. Thank you for letting me only sing one song softly with you here today. And I'm done monologuing. I'm done. I just don't want to leave. That's all. But I'm going to mute myself now.
I appreciate each and every one of y'all. My little Xochi says thank you. Xochi, or Xochitl, means flower in Nahuatl, an indigenous language of what we now call Mexico. As you share these beautiful yellow flowers with us, I feel you here. And again, there's an abundance of gratitude. It's just pouring through me. I'm sure y'all are feeling that too. I'm about to cry. Pisces, baby. Y bueno, come join us here in this porch sitting if y'all want to share some more stories together. Know that we have all these resources through the rootsweekends.org. Some communication. Indy's out here saying, I've been crying. I feel you, friends. I'll share my little panuelo, my little tissue with you. Y bueno, communicate with us on Slack via the website. Find that playlist. I think they'll drop the link in the, the chat. Keep adding to it. Let's keep vibing with each other. And just again, thanks again for joining us on this Roots Weekend. As y'all know, we're going to send out that survey. So please reply so we can keep growing, together. It's very short. Te prometo, I promise. And let's keep these conversations growing. We will see you soon. And let's keep dreaming as we keep so many Northern Lights in our mind's eye, but especially that Roots Week coming up in August. And I'm just so grateful to each and every one of y'all. So let's close it out. Everyone just take a deep breath in, open up your arms nice and wide. And as you exhale, just come in closer to the screen and give yourself a big hug from me to you and from you to me. Until we meet again. Peace, peace, peace. Y'all can stay here for some porch sitting or meet us here at the porch sit. Adios. Hasta pronto.
And he said that pink black girls, not area code. These black girls need to be in the shows. Be on the runways, not just billboards. On top of that, I wanna see when your team. Look at your crown, natural relax to the Jericho. One time soft and sheen, where black girl magic is sometimes blue. Might broke a hairband or two. Raise my voice, she gonna say that I'm angry. Kiss my teeth, and now you say that I'm good. Kid at 16, you say it's my destiny. Driving a range, you think I'm up to no good. Give us a break and let us breathe, man. Give me a chance, let's achieve, fam. And I know that my hair looks a bit different today, so don't touch my hair.
Like new hair, who this? Old black woman jacket and a band to twist. Look, mind over matter, I can handle this. We're fine, take a second, there were walls in risk. See, I think that I care too much, bottleless and cover, see air. 2 cups, I've got nothing to show, but you love, check my flaws and all my flaws. I was black back when it wasn't even in style. I like it, the growth, the light, the pain, the fight. We love, we fight, we hurt, we cry. He paid the price, you'll be
I think I need some time away. I took a little time. I pray we gon' be alright. Okay, alright. Okay, alright. Okay. for balance, praying for clarity. Mars strip me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In Lakesha, Lakin, I am you, you are me. Searching for balance, praying for clarity. Mars strip me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In Lakesha, Lakin, I am you, you are me. I wear clothes, I like to hide, so no one knows what I'm made from. Deep in my soul, taken from home, so far we stroll. Deep in these roads, think we control this shit we don't, but fuck we could. I wish we would throw away these phones, get a bit more holy, see the world more slowly, take tests more roses. Searching for balance, praying for clarity. Mars strip me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In Lakesha, Lakin, I am you, you are me. Searching for balance, praying for clarity. Mars strip me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In Lakesha, Lakin, I am you, you are me. See, all I know is that I know nothing at all. This shit is so mystical, magical, and no, we don't know our potential. How could we, when they lie, they cast spells and they try dropping bombs from the skies like we are not stars.